I thought it was innocent, but my girlfriend is falling for my adopted brother. It started with him flirting. He does this to everyone. But now she's taking it to another level, loving the attention, and I feel like a third wheel. I'm 22 and Felix is 18, and he is my adopted brother. My parents saved Felix from an abusive home when he was a kid, so they were always really protective over him, and he was always the favorite. This made me feel bitter toward him while growing up. Even though Felix is an adult who just started college, my parents still dote on him. Up until he moved out, they made his meals and they still schedule his doctor appointments, which they didn't do for me at his age. I met Emma, 21, at university, and we've been together for about 3 years. She's so damn sweet, funny, beautiful, and we're super close. Felix was accepted into the same university as me, and while he probably could have gone to a better one, our parents forced him to go to mine as they thought it would be safer and make visits easier if we lived in the same city. Anyways, I think my girlfriend Emma is interested in Felix, and it breaks my heart to think it. And this is probably my fault. When I was helping Felix choose his classes, his major had overlap with Emma's, so I signed him up for a couple of hers. This is because I didn't know what the F else to go off of, and if they're in the same class, I could see them afterwards and show Felix around campus, or give him a ride to the grocery store, etc., and get to see my girlfriend. I never even thought of what could go wrong. First day, I went to see them after their class. I introduced them to each other, and we went to get food. I realized that they were getting along really well. She laughed at his jokes, asked him about random facts from their studies, and then marveled at how smart he was after he knew the answer. Don't get me wrong, Emma was still far more all over me, so at that time, I thought it was just her being her sweet self. But over time, their blooming friendship became harder and harder for me to bear. Felix has this way of interacting with others that's very flirtatious, and he doesn't seem to notice. Like this one time we had a friend gathering at our house, and Felix told one of the girls that she's so pretty that if he saw her picture being used to sell frames at the store, he'd buy the whole shelf or something like that. But he seemed surprised when she asked him to go out with her later on, and told her no. He does this behavior with everyone, even other dudes, and now with Emma. It drives me crazy because no one else finds this behavior creepy the way I do, but I guarantee if an ugly guy acted like Felix, suddenly my parents wouldn't find it so cute. The first thing was when we went to a restaurant because my parents were in town and Emma was invited. She noted how good her food was. Felix asked if he could try some, and she said yes. But instead of scooping some of it out of her plate like a normal person, he gently tugged on her sleeve, guided her spoon into his mouth, and thanked her. She just giggled. Am I crazy for finding that intimate? If she updates her appearance, Felix will notice and compliment her. He joked that if biology doesn't work out for her, she could easily fall back on a modeling career. I've heard him say this kind of shit to countless girls, so I told Emma it means nothing. He's also invited us to hang out with him in the past, and even if I can't go with him, he still asks her to go with just the two of them. Emma has never stopped him. At least at first, she'd laugh it off dismissively, but over time, it was clear she was enjoying the attention. She began talking about him a lot, like funny things he did in class, and asked a couple times what he was like when he was younger. When the winter quarter began, they joined some classes together, and for the first time, Emma didn't bother to ask me to join any of hers. They would hang out together after class without me. And when we all hang out, she'd give him more and more attention, looking at him while smiling as if he's the best thing ever. I just wish she'd look at me like she used to. One day, I overheard her and her friend in my apartment, where her friend complained there are no men in our major with both brains and brawn. They're in STEM, so all the dudes in there are probably built like the Chicago being. And Emma quietly replied, that's not true, just look at Felix. But the absolute worst thing was when our friend group was at McDonald's. We were joking about this flyer we saw on campus asking for nude models that paid really well. Suddenly Emma, in front of me, told Felix he should sign up for it. This turned into an uncomfortably drawn-out conversation between Emma and a few other friends about my brother's body and how he would be perfect for artists to sculpt. They worded it grossly, albeit in a joking manner, and how he needs this, he'd been job searching. Emma kept being insistent, saying seriously, you'd make so much money, genuinely trying to convince him. Felix kept saying no and giving valid reasons why he didn't want to, but Emma kept being pushy, telling him to apply. She and the others didn't quit until Felix stopped responding. I'm not confrontational at all, but in the car ride home, I passively said that whole conversation was kind of weird, and it was uncomfortable for me to hear about how badly my own girlfriend and her friends wanted my brother to get naked. Emma and I are the non-serious type. I said this in a pretty joking way, but she seemed to take it seriously. She said what? Like my accusation was the stupidest thing she's ever heard, and she said she was just trying to be like a good older sister to Felix and help him get a job. I told her that while I want him to get hired too, it's not like I'd urge him to do OnlyFans or something. She told me I'm sexualizing a job that's innocent, which I can get, but I told her that regardless, Felix looked uncomfortable and probably felt sexualized since they were making comments about specific parts of his body. We went back and forth for a bit over this, never really raising our voices, but both being upset, and I ended up dropping her off at her own place instead of taking her back to my apartment. I'll also say that since Felix moved here, I tried to become an extra good boyfriend for Emma. If Felix complimented her hair, I'd buy her an expensive hair product and compliment her even better. I've always spoiled her, but feeling competitive, I really upped my game. I know that that was a really backwards way of solving my insecurities rather than just talking to Felix or Emma. But I didn't want to admit that I'm jealous of Felix, like I had all the time when we were kids. I just want one effing area of my life that's mine, that gives me its undivided love and attention. And I thought that Emma was that for me. Now, whenever she mentions Felix, or I think of them in class together, I feel physically ill. That's just to say that the day after the semi-argument, I felt insecure again and texted an apology to Emma. Then I proposed that we go and visit a nearby lake town that she'd been wanting to do for a whole year. She already had a plan of everything she wanted to do there. It's always just been me that was too busy. So, she was super excited. She chose a weekend, and we spent the prior week planning for it, deciding the activities and packing, and she booked us a hotel room. But before we headed out on Friday, she asked me a question that effing destroyed me. She asked if we could bring Felix. No other friends. She didn't ask if we could make a group thing. She asked for just Felix to come. I asked her why on earth we'd bring my little brother when it's supposed to be something romantic for the two of us. She explained that the three of us are always hanging out, and she's told Felix about the lake and invited him to go sometime in the past, so it would be rude not to bring him. After bottling up everything for so long, I finally blew up at her with how upset the two of them made me. How I felt like a third wheel whenever it's the three of us. I mentioned the flirting and the conversation I overheard, and even briefly mentioned how my parents did this exact thing to me. Admittedly, they have nothing to do with her, but still told her I'm so tired of being someone's second favorite. She responded by saying I was totally exaggerating as I'm acting like she cheated when she didn't do anything. I never accused her of cheating. She said all their interactions have been platonic, and she kept explaining her side of things to where I began to feel guilty for getting so emotional. But I told her I was sorry and wouldn't go to the lake with her anymore, which pissed her off. She said the hotel and a couple places she booked times with would charge her a cancellation fee, but I didn't care. This happened about a week ago, and I haven't seen him since. Felix texted me, asking to talk just the two of us. I assume Emma told him about our fight, but I blocked him. Do I genuinely think Felix is interested in Emma? No. He's probably just sheltered as F by my parents and doesn't know better. But do I think Emma likes him? Yes, but I still love her so damn much. But what if I'm wrong? What if she just thinks he's a good friend? In their defense, I've never really told Felix to stop the flirting, nor really mentioned to Emma that her friendship with him bugs me. I'm also the one that put them in the same classes and introduced them. Best comments. Hope he needs to speak to Felix and let him know everything. He should also dump his girlfriend. She will make a move on Felix really fast, and then you will know exactly what kind of person your brother is and can make your decisions on what relationship you want with him going forward based off that. Their comments about the modeling job were freaking gross. The modeling thing was wild. It went on for so freaking long too. Reading these comments, I realized it was even creepier than I thought it was, and I wish I had defended my brother. I've admittedly never been that protective because he always had my parents. She's just showing her true colors. Be glad it's happening now and in front of you instead of behind your back and before you were more entangled with her. If she would do this with your brother, she would do it with someone else. Imagine if it had been some guy from her college you didn't even know. Right now, she'd be doing the same thing with him, and you'd be completely in the dark, thinking she was the perfect girlfriend when in reality, she's just not good girlfriend material. I don't think you're jealous of Felix. You're resentful of Felix due to your parents' treatment. Kids in abusive households tend to be people pleasers in order to minimize the chaos in the household, so that may be what he's doing. It is a form of PTSD. They have outwardly flirty, joking personalities in order to keep the environment as non-confrontational as possible. You said yourself the conversation was awkward when she brought up nude modeling. She may make him uncomfortable as hell, but he wants your approval so much that he deals with it. You really need to talk to Felix before anyone else. Update number 1, 17 days later. Clarifying points from last update. I blocked my brother as I was pissed at him for causing all this. Juniors can have classes with freshmen at my school. There are pathways that you need to graduate, but you can do them at your own pace. My girlfriend never told my brother to do OnlyFans. I brought it up as a comparison for the model thing. Why didn't I think Felix liked Emma? I hated how he acted with her, but it was tame compared to what he does with his guy friends from high schools. I saw him sit in their laps, give them back rubs, drink from their straws. Pretty sure some of them had girlfriends. Sorry for insulting y'all in STEM. Now, for the update. The response from the first post made me realize I've been biased against Felix, so I met up with him to talk. The reason why Felix texted me was apparently because Emma asked him about my upbringing, and something she said made him think I was mad at him. I asked him straight up if he was into Emma, and he said no, and said he agreed to go to the lake because he thought I was the one wanting him to come. I asked to see their texts, and Felix agreed. The texts weren't really explicit, but they still felt intimate. Emma gave him compliments, affirmations, and nicknames, and spoke to him lovingly in a way that made me feel special to her when she spoke to me. She asked Felix for help with schoolwork constantly. She was fixate on how smart he is, told him about her dreams for the future, and asked him for advice about one of her deepest struggles. There was nothing that alluded to cheating, but I somehow still felt betrayed. Felix's texts were mostly jokes, and the affectionate ones were pretty much just texts he sends to our mom. I trusted him at this point, so I tried to explain how they made me feel. He apologized profusely and said he'd stop talking to Emma. He told me he had his own crush and joked I should ask her out on a weekend trip to get back at him. Felix said he was just trying to be friends with my friends, so I'd hang out with him beyond just giving him rides. He asked if I blocked him because I don't like him, and it was hard to explain that. No, I don't like him, but that doesn't mean I don't love him. I tried to explain my hostility by pointing out our parents' favoritism, and Felix replied with something like, "You're right, they do seem to like me better. Maybe you're adopted." He's never really taken that seriously. I asked Felix to describe how Emma acted with him, and from what I could understand, Emma and her friend commented on his appearance often, knew he was at the gym routinely, and they visited him a few times while he was trying to work out. Emma frequently offered him rides and insisted that he come over to her apartment to drink, as he'd never done it before. He didn't tell me sooner because he doesn't know what behaviors are okay or not. No shit. And thought Emma just wanted to be his friend. I gave him a crash course on relationship boundaries and why neither of their behavior was okay, and advised him not to flirt so much with everyone. Felix said he just tries to treat women like he treats guys, but promised to try and curb his behavior. I had a few exchanges with Emma that I'll just condense into one when we finally met in person. She said that when we had our argument over the lake, my anger came out of nowhere, and it scared her that I seemed like I was accusing her of cheating. She apologized for being close to Felix, but reminded me that I've never went into detail about my history with him. I apologized for not communicating. When I brought up the texts, Emma opened their DMs for me to point out the one that bothered me, but I could barely explain why they did. I asked why she invited Felix on the trip, and she said she mentioned we had plans to go and Felix seemed interested. However, Emma said she never saw Felix at the gym like he claimed, pointing out the times that he told me he went was during class for her. She listed a ton of examples of how Felix was the one initiating their closeness and denied a few of the things he said she did. Emma said he was the one insisting to try alcohol and even came over at some point, so it's not like it was something he didn't agree with. It was a group thing where they played card games and had a few drinks. I was skeptical, but to be fair, I often have female friends over at my place. Emma said he'd cut him off if this bothered me, but I told her we needed a break because whether the interest Felix described was true or not, I believed it. She was very emotional, but eventually understood that it was my own issue and not just something she did. She thanked me for being honest with her and supported that I wanted to work on my insecurities. There's a lot of back and forth between the two of them that I've left out, so at this point I was exhausted. But I confronted Felix about the Emma stuff, and he seemed nervous. He stood by what he said and suggested Emma may have skipped class to see him at the gym. He did in fact go over to her place to drink, and when he described what happened, his words were all over the place and his story kept changing. Felix is a bad liar, so I felt this was a cover-up and demanded to tell me if he slept with Emma. He denied it and claimed his memory was hazy because the others gave him way too much alcohol and went on about how he was so drunk that he threw up in the bathroom. I gave Felix another crash course about alcohol safety, but didn't fully believe him. I know his tells, and he seemed like he was lying. I asked Emma about this, and she didn't see him get sick, which makes more sense as she's very responsible with alcohol, and I don't think she would let someone she cares about overdo it. I don't know why they'd tell me about this in the first place, but I'm starting to think they drunkenly slept together, and now they can't get their story straight. The other day, Felix notably cut back on his affectionate/flirty behavior with some of his friends, so it seems like he's trying to show me he can listen to my advice. But I feel like he wouldn't listen to me that much if he wasn't super guilty, which almost makes me believe more that he had sex with Emma. I said some pretty mean things to him when we were alone, but I regret it now, because I'm probably overthinking. It would be really out of character for both of them to have an affair, as Emma was always loyal before this shit, and Felix has never cared for dating. I kind of want to make Felix send a mock. Want to go out? Text to Emma to see if she was lying about her feelings for him, but if she says no, I'll just feel like ass. I'm so tired of feeling paranoid, and I wasn't prepared for Emma's absence to be so surreal to me. And now, I just feel detached from reality. I've contemplated contacting the others at the drinking night to hear their story, but I also just want to focus on other things right now. I think I'll take the comments' advice and look into counseling. Best comments. They both can't be trusted. Something is off. They both initiated at different times and want to blame the other without confessing to anything overt. I mean, the whole I couldn't see him because I had class thing is not exactly an airtight alibi. No college student has ever skipped class to accidentally run into a crush, right? They're both acting suspiciously. Something happened. However, you can tell that Felix is trying to spare Opie feelings while Emma just straight up lied and threw Felix under the bus. He wants Opie to like him. I wouldn't expose someone's girlfriend like that if I wanted them to like me. I've learned in my 30-plus years of life that the person who immediately throws the other person under the bus is usually the one lying the most. Honestly, all the interactions that Opie has described make it seem like Emma is the one instigating all this shit, and Opie's love for Emma and resentment towards Felix is clouding his judgment. Opie should keep his distance from them all, including the crappy parents. Felix seems to have been spoiled with some quite worrying behavior. The parents have been cruel to Opie, damaging his self-esteem. The ex-girlfriend just sounds like a liar. Move a long way away from them, all ASAP. Can I ask what your parents do to cause friction with Felix? Do they favor him? Thank you for asking. My parents know the details of Felix's abuse, unlike me, and I think they're more traumatized by it than he is. They've always been hyper-protective of his feelings. If he did something wrong to me, I'd still have to apologize. I got really sick at school once, but my mom didn't pick me up because Felix's school was having an event. They didn't like when I complained. They wanted me to pretend I was strong enough to take it. So they'd have an excuse to keep sacrificing me for him. His adoption and our upbringing are too long of a story, but yeah, they do favor him. I mean, they visited my town more in Felix's first few months of college than they did in my first few years. Honestly, it's better to be permanently broken up with Emma than think that working on your own insecurities will make you feel better about your relationship in the future. She sounds very shady, and honestly, I feel grossed out by the simple fact that she fawned over her boyfriend's 18-year-old brother. Imagine if it were flipped around, a 22-year-old boyfriend doing the exact same thing to his girlfriend's 18-year-old sister. Everyone would instantly call him manipulative, a creep, and completely out of line. They slept together when she invited him over to her place. Most likely, she got him drunk and then they did the deed. Now they're both trying to lie their way out of the mess they created together. Update number 2, 28 days later. I will list everything that's happened since my last post, as more input always helps, but hopefully this post will be my last. A couple quick notes. I know I'm insane, searching for answers instead of just cutting Emma off. But I've distanced myself from the issue a bit. I feel less stressed about it now, and I prefer to find closure. I didn't find it too weird they hid the drinking thing, as Emma and I host pretty often, and Felix isn't supposed to drink family history, so he probably didn't tell me to hide it from the parents. I really appreciate the advice, but going no or low contact with my family would be difficult as they pay for my college. My parents asked me to do things for Felix pretty routinely as well. Now, for the update. I talked to my parents a bit about this, and they kind of comforted me. They do think Felix did nothing wrong, but that's okay. Felix has confided in my mom many times that he's asexual and aromantic, and her point was, you can't hold a grudge against him. Why would he go after your girl when he wouldn't even bring a date to prom? Regardless, I somewhat have their support. Anyways, last week I called my friend Leah as she was at the gathering and supposedly went to the gym with Emma to see Felix, so she have the most answers. She told me basically what Emma told me. Gathering was just casual, no one drank that much or got sick. Something physical didn't seem likely, as their only time alone together was Emma, their designated driver, taking Felix home early, but Leah said it took them less than 30 minutes, which is accurate to maps. She said she never went to the gym to see Felix. Okay? She also told me, somewhat angrily, that Emma was struggling with our break. Emma and I did hang out a couple times recently, and she's been making an effort to get back together, asking about my counseling appointments and being supportive. I've also paid her back the cancellation fee from our hotel. We talked over things a lot, and I feel better about it. A few days ago, I met up with Emma and Felix on campus. Most of the suspicious things they said about the other made sense when they discussed it, but there were some things they couldn't agree with. I can't really remember some smaller petty things, but the two big ones are, both Emma and Leah denied the gym thing. Felix goes to the gym on a schedule, and the times he told me was overlapping with Emma's class. But Felix stands by what he said, albeit he still seems kind of nervous. Felix told me he threw up at the gathering and told Emma, so she comforted him and offered him a ride. Meanwhile, Emma kept saying that's not how things happened, as he left early for other reasons. Same with Leah. Emma asked Felix if he was trying to break us up, to which he apologized and backpedaled a bit on his accusations. But in the end, neither caved. I feel like this could have been resolved, yet there was arguing because Emma kept shutting Felix down. We didn't exactly reach a conclusion because Felix broke off from us. Emma told me it's just frustrating to have things made up about her, but my guess is she's skewing the truth because she realized she gave an 18-year-old too much to drink. Then again, Leah's description of the night was the same as hers, while Felix's has been all over the place. It's also possible Felix is a lightweight who's misremembering things, but for the gym thing, I really don't know. Felix's descriptions have been too detailed for me to dismiss them, and that's the main reason I'm not back with Emma. Either way, I talked this over with a counselor, and I don't think there was something physical between them. I think I was just paranoid and misinterpreting their feelings. And if Emma's lying about this petty drama, I'll just move on. I have to admit, I've been such an asshole to Felix, and the more I think there was no affair, the more I regret it. Felix has always gotten away with so much weird shit because he's conventionally attractive, so in my advice I added that he's becoming a creep by being so touchy. He seemed terrified to have come off this way, and now he's just quiet and annoyed with others. And this is a very social guy who used to do shit like go under our table and tie everyone's shoelaces together. It may just be stress from school. As Emma mentioned, he'd been skipping the class they have together, which is crazy because midterms, and he's always being a straight-A student. I'll get to apologize to him soon, as my parents asked me to drive him back to them for our break. They noticed Felix's distance too and are worried. Best comments: people were wondering if Opie would get back to Emma, and he did answer that question. Honestly, I wouldn't get back with Emma. I feel like trust has been lost, and that'd be hard to regain. Just move on and focus on yourself, and continue to go to counseling. I don't fully trust her. I don't think I'll get back together with her, especially if she's been lying about her actions toward my brother. I think Felix is lying to make himself look better, and I think the scheming is over the top. That's what I want to think, but it doesn't seem like something Felix would do. He hates drama, and I feel like he's not smart enough with people to be this manipulative. Who knows if I'll ever get the truth, though? Opie needs to transfer to a new college and stop living his life just to support Felix. He should also create some distance from his parents, since they're enabling the same thing, expecting him to sacrifice everything for his brother. As for the ex-girlfriend, you did the right thing by breaking up with her. Don't accept any contact or attempts to stay friends. If she couldn't see how wrong it was what she was doing with your brother, then she's not trustworthy. She's just gaslighting you about what really happened.